Good evening. I now call the December 14, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. I remind any people in the audience that we do have policy statements and agendas available outside. If you don't already have one, please feel free to take one. And if you do have a cell phone, if you could turn it off or put it on mute during the meeting, it would be appreciated. I would note for the record that we have here tonight with staff, we have Craig Collins, Dee Hardy, and Aaron Clokey with the Planning and Zoning Office. We have Wallace Trembeth with the City Attorney's Office, and Liz Becker, our Community Facilities Planning Coordinator, and overall runner of the city. So Liz, thank you. With that, I would go to the next item on our agenda and ask for approval of the September 28th minutes. Reminder, we did not have meetings in October or November, so September 28th was the last time that we had met. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 28th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Moved by Commissioner Feth. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hine. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, please cast your vote for approval. And please record the vote.
Uh-oh. I wasn't here.
Mr. Attorney, what does that do for us with respect to the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, if we could just postpone approval of these minutes until next month, that would be fine with a simple motion. Okay,
I would entertain a motion to postpone approval of the September 28th meeting minutes.
Can't pass that either.
Well, we could pass that one.
Yeah, we could pass that one.
I could even make the motion I would make the motion to delay the approval of the minutes to the next meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Commissioner Frank, seconded by Vice Chairman Redder for postponement. And if there's no discussion, please cast your vote on postponing approval.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Okay, so we will postpone the approval of our September 28th minutes. I would also backtrack and note the attendance of our liaison with City Council. Councilman Hopkins is here also. With that, let's move on to we have two items on our agenda tonight for hearings. The first being PLN 17036R to vacate and replat. Before that, I would remind the applicants that it takes 4 affirmative votes to carry any motion, not just a simple majority of those members present. Anything less than 4 votes is a denial. And we do have 2 commissioners not present tonight, so there are just 5 of us. Commissioners Holloway and Commissioner Waterbury are not here. So the applicants, you can postpone your public hearing until next month in anticipation of more Planning and Zoning Commission members being present if you so desire. PLN 17036R is a request to vacate and replat of Lot 9, Block 3, Meadowview Estates, Edition Number 2, and Lot 23, Block 3, Meadowview Estates, Edition Number 2, Lots 22 and 23, Blocks 3, to create a new subdivision entitled Meadowview Estates, Edition Number 2, Lot 24 and 25, Block 3, comprising 1.51 acres more or less, creating 2 lots located at 4423 Freedom Circle, the applicant being Eads Incorporated. Could we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eads Inc. has applied to replat 2 existing lots located in Freedom Circle in the development area generally known as Meadowview Estates at the east end of Casper. The proposed replat is reconfiguring the shared lot line between the 2 lots in order to enlarge the eastern lot and reduce the westernmost lot in size slightly. The subject property is owned R2, 1 unit residential, and encompasses a total of 1.5 acres. No easements are being altered by the replat, and both proposed lots exceed the city's minimum R2 zoning district standards. Typically, a two-lot subdivision is handled administratively, utilizing the city's minor boundary adjustment replatting procedure. In this case, an MBA replat is not possible because of the two lots being located in separate subdivisions. Mr. Chairman, I have 6 exhibits. A, the replat application. B, vicinity map of the 300-foot notification zone. C, copy of the plat. D, legal notice sent to the Star Tribune. E, notice of public hearing sent to property owners within 300 feet. And F, memo to the chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our report.
Thank you. Exhibits A through F are accepted for the record. I now declare the public hearing open for consideration of case number PLN 17036R. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes, the rules of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals who address the commission to approach the lectern, identify yourself, and state your address. Would the person or persons representing case number PLN 17036R please come forward and explain the application? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Rocky Eads. My address is 6900 Casper Mountain Road, and I guess I'm here to answer questions and give you my reasonings for moving the lot line over. I'm the original developer and builder in the subdivision. We've been building up there for several years now. We're doing the high-end homes. Some of these homes we've had to adjust the lot lines to accommodate the size of homes we've been building, and that's because of a lot of different ideas and plans that we're bringing forward to design these kind of houses that are being built up there. The lot sizes we're using up there are on an average of probably 0.6 acres. The lot that we're readjusting is 0.64 acres. We'll end up at 6.4 acres, and that's pretty much an average size of the lots that are in the subdivision.
Okay.
Questions?
Questions from the commission for Mr. Eads? Thank you, Mr. Eads. As required by state law, we will invite people to comment in favor of or in opposition to all public hearings. And is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of case PLN 17036R? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to case PLN 17036R? Seeing none, there being no others to speak for or against this case, I now declare the public hearing closed and would entertain a motion to approve and forward a due pass recommendation to the City Council to deny or to table case PLN 17036R, the replat.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Frank.
I move that on PLN 17036R I move to approve the replat and forward it to the City Council with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hine. Discussion.
Second that.
Okay. All right. Well, we thirded it then.
Okay.
Discussion. Seeing no discussion, please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to case second one on our docket, PLN 17041R. Again, I would advise the applicant that it takes 4 affirmative votes to carry any motion and not just a simple majority of those members of the commission present. Anything less than 4 votes would be considered a denial. The applicants can postpone your public hearing until next month in anticipation of more Planning and Zoning Commission members being present if they so desire. PLN 17041 is a proposed amendment to the New Delta Edition subdivision agreement dated August 3, 1999, to remove the land use restriction on restaurants with drive-up service windows on Lot 1 of the Topol, T-O-P-O-L edition, located at 4140 Centennial Hills Boulevard, the northeast corner of East 15th and Wyoming Boulevard. The applicants, Topol LLC and Wyoming Orthopedic Institute LLC. Do we have a staff report, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicants in this case are the current owners of all the properties within the former New Delta addition, which was approved in 1999. Since that time, the property has been further subdivided to create the Topol addition and the New Delta addition number 2 as it's platted today. When the New Delta addition was approved, the City Council included land use restrictions in the subdivision agreement in order to restrict land uses that the surrounding neighborhood may have found objectionable at the time. One of those restrictions prevents restaurants with drive-up windows to be placed on the lot, now addressed as 4120 Centennial Hills Boulevard on the corner. Staff believes that that restriction on restaurants with drive-ups was meant at the time to prevent fast food restaurants from development on the site. Since 1999, the property has remained vacant and undeveloped. The property owners currently have a development proposal for the corner lot, 4120 Centennial Hills Boulevard. However, one of the potential commercial uses may be prevented from locating on the property because of their wish to have a drive-through. Mr. Chairman, I have 7 exhibits. A is the letter requesting the amendment from John Bailey. B, map of the 300-foot notification zone. C, legal notice sent to the Star Tribune. D, notice of public hearing sent to property owners within 300 feet. E, letter of support from Casper Orthopedics. F, letter of opposition from Mike and Judy Hamilton at 4117 Stafford Court. And G, memo to the chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. That concludes staff's report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Exhibits A through G are accepted for the record. I now declare the public hearing open for consideration of case PLN 17041. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes, the rules of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals who address the commission again to approach the lectern, identify yourself, and please state your address. Would the person or persons representing case PLN 17041 come forward and explain the application? Good evening.
I'm John Bailey at 370 Casper in Casper, America. I represent Topol, which is the owner of the land in question tonight. Jerry Behrens and I purchased this property in August of 1999 for the purpose of building an orthopedic complex to handle an ever-increasing staff and patient load. The lot was approximately 4.5 acres. Our complex used about half of that property, and we continually referred to the lower half as the other piece of land, which is Topol, where that comes from. We divided that property into 2 pieces, and we then allowed the other 7 members of Casper Orthopedics to purchase and be a part of the Topol group. Our initial thought was that this area would be used to let us expand Casper Orthopedics if needed. Up until this time, the land's primarily been used as a place to grow political signs. We do that every 2 years. We tried to stay nonpartisan, but that's about the only use it's had. COA, Casper Orthopedics, eventually purchased the property to the south of the complex, and so we then looked to make this other piece of land useful. The lot's been on the market 4 to 5 years. We felt it was a good location for different types of businesses, and that filling in an empty lot in the city would be desirable for the community. Zoning at a C2 level allowed a wide range of business possibilities. Recently, we asked Mr. Charles Shop and RE/MAX to help us find a possible buyer, and he found a group that expressed interest in developing the property. The group is known for good building practices, attractive design, and community involvement. The request is that the buyers be given a zoning variance that will not restrict their ability to develop the land. C2 zoning in 1999 allowed convenience establishments, but did not allow drive-up service. this today would preclude businesses such as Starbucks, sandwich shops that have pickup windows and many other desirable types of businesses that are how we live in the 21st century. You know, businesses must change with the time, and I think zoning variances also need to. Topol would request this change. Bob Sutter is here to further discuss what might come on this property. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And you're a physician, are you not, Mr. B?
I'm retired.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I gave you the respect due. Okay, questions for Dr. Bailey from the commission?
You have someone to answer questions you're referring to about the prospective buyers, what they might put there?
Say that again.
Yeah. What is the businesses that may go in or have been proposed?
Yes, Mr. Sutter is here. He is the one who's kind of lining that out and is going to speak after me, I think.
Okay.
If there are no other questions, thank you, Dr. Bailey. As required by state law, we will invite people to comment in favor of or in opposition to all public hearings. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of case PLN 17041? Mr. Sutter.
I'm Bob Sutter, 1907 Rustic Drive. I'm Vice Chairman of the Hilltop National Bank, and the Hilltop National Bank and the purchaser of the project developer are owned by the same family, and that's why I'm here representing the purchaser developer. Our plan or thought at this point, first of all, is to have this location for a branch bank someday of Hilltop National Bank. We're a neighborhood banking organization. We started that way over 50 years ago. We now have 5 locations around the neighborhoods in Casper, and we think this would be a neighborhood that would be good for the bank and good for the neighborhood for us to have a presence there. Of course, we also have another neighborhood bank in Glen Rock. We think that side of Casper is maybe a little bit underserved, at least as far as our locations. But when it came available, we discussed it a little bit. This was about 9 months ago. And there's certainly been some issues with the property through the years. And through the counsel of Mr. Beamer and Mr. Collins, some help of our engineer, we were able to get some traffic issues somewhat resolved to the point that we could actually pay for a traffic study, which we accomplished a couple of months ago. In the plat for that, and that would be a very tentative plat, for that traffic study that we submitted had a branch bank on it, a restaurant, and an office facility. And the traffic study did support the fact that traffic and the layout we had, with a couple of suggestions from the traffic engineer, that these 3 facilities could be supported in that location within Casper standards for traffic. Well, I think the point I want to make, and naturally this assumes that we will want to put a branch bank there eventually, but that is the current plan, certainly. I want to make a point, the other locations, the other facilities there, we don't know what we'll have. But our best guess was a restaurant of some type and an office building would work, possibly something in the medical field with our neighbors up the hill. But those are all in the future. The one thing that we felt was very certain, the property is too big to just put a small banking office there. It would be lost on that corner. And we don't want it for that purpose solely. But I will tell you also that we are a neighborhood organization, and we pride ourselves on being a good neighbor of Casper. Our owners pride themselves on being good neighbors throughout Casper. And whatever we do there is going to be for the mutual benefit of the neighborhood as well as the ownership. We think it'll be an asset to the neighborhood. I guess I'd welcome any questions.
Okay, questions for Mr. Sutter from the commission?
Well, Mr. Sutter, I drive that drive like 4 or 5 times a day,
Okay?
and there's a real mess right there where the road from the small businesses that come in is right next to where the gas station, where they exit right there, and there's 2 on one side of the road and 1 on the other, and it gets to be quite a big mess. How many people are going to be, I'm assuming the road matches up with the road that goes into to the small business park that's there?
The plan that was approved called for some changes in the access to Casper Orthopedics, a roadway from that road into the lot, as well as some turn lanes out of the curb cut that's already there. Possibly Mr. Collins or someone, I don't have an overhead of that, but there would be some layout and changes on those streets to take care of that traffic.
I don't have it.
The bank traffic would not necessarily add a lot to the rush hour traffic. We'd have a very few employees there from the bank. A restaurant probably wouldn't add much to that morning traffic either. An office building might, but the traffic engineer took all of that into consideration when he studied what the traffic had a current traffic count. That was kind of a challenge because we had an eclipse this summer that changed our traffic a little bit, so the traffic study got postponed and so on. But we feel we had a straight up honest traffic study. Mr. Beamer was quite particular that we get that, and so are we. We don't want to have something that creates a problem.
Thank you.
Possibly Mr. Collins can address some of that.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that the applicants in this case have gone above and beyond in looking at traffic. Typically at this time in a project, we haven't even looked at traffic yet. We're just simply looking at land use. But it is solvable. You're correct. There are some issues there, and it will involve some realignments. And we do like to see streets lined up across from each other to reduce the conflicts. I believe there may be some traffic management solutions such as right-ins, right-outs, things like that. But it's something Mr. Beamer has looked at and is comfortable with the solutions identified in the study.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Sutter?
question.
Commissioner Frank.
The concern that was reflected to us was that a fast food restaurant would go in there and it would have lights on all night long, 24 hours a day. When you're looking at the site plan, is the site plan set up to be more conscious of the residential area behind that lot, as far as making sure that you've accommodated some of their concerns with your plan?
Ms. Frank, thank you. The site plan, like I say, is we don't have anybody that wants to come there right now, so we're a little up in the air. But absolutely, when I say we want to be a good neighbor, we want to be a good neighbor. There are things that can be done. I don't envision this ever, and this is personally my personal opinion, as being a 24-hour fast food restaurant. Maybe a fast food restaurant, but it's in the neighborhood. There's not going to be midnight traffic there, in my opinion, and other experts can chime in on that. But some of we haven't really made a secret of this, and some of the residents in the neighborhood say, it'd be kind of nice to be able to grab a sandwich on the way home at night when the cook is out of town and things like that. So we are serious about being a good neighbor. Lighting and so on, there's just so much technology available today that can light a parking lot and not illuminate the hillside and that sort of thing that certainly would be incorporated into those plans.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Sutter from the commission? Commissioner Hein.
Are you asking for an exception, or are you,
What are we asking for?
or are you replanning this, or is this a?
All we want to do is delete the line that refers to the prohibition of drive-ups with a restaurant. Please help me with that if I'm not correct, Mr. Collins.
No, Mr. Chairman, he's absolutely correct. The subdivision agreement in this case is a little strange in that typically land uses are covered with zoning only. In this case, for whatever reason, the city elected to further restrict beyond zoning some land uses with the use of a subdivision agreement, something that we would not recommend doing going forward. But in this case, what they're asking to do is slightly amend that agreement to take that restriction out.
And Mr. Collins, am I correct that that decision at that time was made not by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but by City Council? Is that correct or not?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. The City Council has the ultimate authority to review and execute agreements. And I can't say whether or not the Planning Commission agreed or didn't agree at that time, but the City Council is the one that executed the agreement.
Thank you.
So that's why they just can't replat it.
Correct. The subdivision agreements are recorded against the property, and it acts as sort of a deed restriction, if you will.
Further questions for Mr. Sutter? Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Mr. Shop would like to say a couple of words from the realtor's perspective on this. So.
Okay. Again, we would continue to invite those in favor of the application to amend. Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Charlie Shop. I live at 1235 Donegal. I'm with Remax, the group. I was hired by the owners of the property to market this property. I was hired back in April to take this project on. As Dr. Bailey stated, this property's been on the market for a number of years. One of my competitors had this property on the market for the year before I had it. During the time period that I've had this property on the market, we've had interest from a car wash. Car wash actually made an offer on this property, and also part of the subdivision agreement does not allow a car wash on this property. We've had interest from another gas station company, and again, a gas station is not allowed on this property here. I just kind of bring this information to you so you're aware of it. I was also involved with developing some of the lots in the Stafford Court Edition. Those lots that back up to Wyoming Boulevard. I was involved with developing those homes in there and building some of those homes in there. So I'm aware of the area and what's been going on with the area. I did take a look at your Generation Casper plan, and one of the items that comes up in this Generation Casper is the talk about neighborhood centers. And neighborhood centers are to be located within areas, neighborhoods dealing with single-family and multifamily homes. And some of the items that they talk about in this neighborhood center are restaurants, offices, grocery stores. And this piece of property actually falls within this definition of neighborhood centers in regards to the mapping in your documentation. So I just bring that to your attention. We're trying to do a project in here that's going to be cohesive with the neighborhood and be a good project for the community. So, any questions?
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Schott from the commission? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of case PLN 17041?
Stephen Orcutt, 4011 South Oak Street, Casper. I'm a physician at Casper Orthopedics and wanted to reflect that in representing my partners and I, we have no objection to this development or change and support it. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission? Thank you, Doctor. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of case PLN 17041? Councilman Hopkins.
Good evening. Bob
Good evening.
405 South Beach. This looks like a really good use of the property. I know we've had some concerns of the property owners on the north side of this property. However, we've been down this road before between a C2 zone and an R1, R2. And in light of the fact that we have in our ordinances a buffer requirement between C2 and R2, R1, I think that would probably minimize any effect that this might have on it. Therefore, while I understand I have a little different position here, I don't see a real significant issue with that. So,
Thank you. Questions for Councilman Hopkins from the commission?
thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of case PLN 17041? Hearing none, is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to case PLN 17041? Wishing to speak in opposition? There being no others to speak for or against this case, I now declare the public hearing closed and will entertain a motion to approve and forward a due pass recommendation to City Council to deny or to table case PLN 17041, an amendment to the New Delta Edition subdivision agreement. Is there a motion to?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Frank.
on case PLN 17-041, I move that we should approve the removing of the land use restriction and forward a due pass recommendation to the City Council.
Thank you. Is there a second to Commissioner Frank's motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Vice Chairman Redder. Discussion. Commissioner Hine.
What's the buffering required on that? Is it like 10 feet? And then some trees, basically, with a 6-foot fence minimum?
Mr. Chairman, the Title 17 of the municipal code provides 6 different buffering alternatives. Anything from a 6-foot fence, berming, density of landscaping, things like that. So it could be any number of things. I would also point out that in this case, there's a significant grade difference with much of the site, which will also help with that.
Yeah, and trees block a lot of stuff out.
Correct.
Always plant a couple extra trees.
Yes,
And make your
and
neighbors happy.
we've already discussed lighting, but that is always a focus when we review to make sure that that light stays on the site it's supposed to.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I would offer this in my view of the property, that there is a slight elevation change, which I think is not reflected in our exhibits, but it's there, and I think that lends itself to a natural buffering in itself, so it is relatively minor. And my comments, I think I would echo what Mr. Schaub said with respect to Generation Casper. I think that this, to me, complements what was trying to be presented by our update of our comprehensive use plan that came out in Generation Casper. So I saw this as a positive also. Further comments or questions from the commission? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to remove the land restrictions and recommend a due pass to City Council. So please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next item, I would move on to council actions. And if Councilman Hopkins wishes to come up and present a report now on that. And I do have a request, Councilman Hopkins, even though there wasn't on our agenda, if you could briefly discuss the City Council's decision on PLN 17030Z, which was the zoning change of the lady with the fence on North Washington.
And the corn shop.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
And the lady with the fence on Washington with the.
If you could just brief the commission on what the council decided on that case, it would be appreciated.
Actually, you guys were overruled. You guys were going by what the law said, and I don't fault you for that. I think you did what you had to do. However, council elected that for the sake of a few square foot of fence and to make a property more useful to the owner, changing to C2 was a reasonable thing to do. So I hope you understand that council did overrule that, and as I understand it, she can leave her fence. So.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add to that the council did direct staff to amend the ordinance to allow for residential properties to buffer themselves from adjacent commercial uses. So we will be tackling a simple ordinance amendment to hopefully not have this situation occur again.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Other issues?
Very happy to hear that one.
I was too. I'm glad that you took it to.
I just want to thank him for his service.
Yeah.
You guys, you probably have no idea how much you help council. I mean, you guys research the issues, and while I know we don't always agree, we probably agree 98% of the time, and I'm guessing at that number, but I appreciate your efforts, and I just want to thank Councilman or Commissioner Holloway for his service, and I hope he will be back to join us someday again. In addition to that, I wanted to let you guys know, and you're probably fully aware of this, that we have a meeting next Tuesday, which we're going to decide the fate of the properties that we purchased from the Plains Furniture. This is really a tough decision, but I would hope you would come, and I hope council, we would like to hear your comments as people that have been involved in planning and zoning on Tuesday night. And so if you can make it, I would appreciate your being there.
What time will that meeting start, Bob?
That one will be at 6.
Is that the three, Bob, is that the three pieces of property that?
Now, the issues at hand are, they're kind of opposing issues. We have a proposal that is for the conference center, the financing yet to be arranged, to put it essentially on the southern half adjacent to the David Street Station. And in addition to that, the conference center proposal includes the purchase, well, somebody other than the state owning what used to be called the Goodstein property, which where a lot of people are parking now for the businesses that have been developed there. The problem is that there is no way to know whether the state will let the city have that or a private owner have it. But if a private owner should come in and develop the conference center, it would significantly affect the parking for the businesses that are down there right now. So it's a tough decision, because if we start to sell the south end of the Plains Furniture property with 2 or 3 bids on 2 properties, the things are kind of mutually exclusive, and that's the problem. So council has to make a decision Tuesday night, and this isn't a fun one, guys. It's one we just have to decide one way or the other. But if you have input that you'd like to give to that, I think we'd love to hear from you.
So if I've got it figured right, that's December 19th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Does that sound right? Okay, well, thank you for that, and
Thank you.
we'll try to get us.
Other than something easy. Christmas coming? Yes.
Well, I'd ask you about cable channel 192, but I don't know if that's appropriate to come up with. Anyway. All right, thank you, Councilman Hopkins. Community Development Director Liz Becker, I understand you have a report for us.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm going to first default to Aaron Clokey because he had some comments he wanted to share with you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clokey.
Is this a for or against thing?
I came here tonight just to give not a formal goodbye, but a formal see you later. So I have, as of November 13th, took the position with the Casper area MPO as the MPO supervisor. So you will not see me at future Planning and Zoning Commission meetings unless you say the magic word transportation or parking or pedestrian friendly.
Beer, isn't it?
So,
Now
so
I have
are
a.
you the person we're to contact regarding then the sidewalks over by our area? Why they don't have sidewalks in front of the big houses?
That would be Andrew Beamer.
Okay.
Casper.
If you ever
So
have,
you said transportation or, you know.
if you ever have complaints, it's always Andrew Beamer.
Well, I have a question for our city attorney. Do we have the right to vote as to whether or not to accept this transfer, or what's our level of authority on this?
I think your level of authority is to give him a giant raise, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Kidding.
In his new position or his old position?
Both.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that's an opportunity that you are looking forward to, and we wish you the best and look forward to still seeing you here occasionally if the circumstances warrant. So congratulations.
And I just want to say it was really a pleasure to work with such a talented and thoughtful commission. I don't think all city staff are this lucky, so thank you very much.
Now, will you still you'll still have an office in the city?
I'm still in the same office.
Okay.
It's only, and the new one's only about 15 feet from where the old one was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I haven't gone anywhere.
Okay.
You can always come find me.
All right. Well, I hope you get Craig trained on the
Parking
on
or
your jobs.
something.
Yeah, it's a daily struggle.
Well, we appreciate the work you did on the plan, the Generation Casper. I know that was a lot of work, and a lot of it was on your shoulders, so thanks for that, and thanks for everything else you've done.
Resolution. Thank you for that. What do you think?
That's not necessary, but I appreciate it.
Well, it's in the minutes, and we thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Becker.
Thank you. Following on that, one of Aaron's first jobs has been to kick off our downtown parking study, which is an MPO-funded project. Want to thank Randy, Councilman Hine, and Councilman King, Commissioner, pardon me, for being in attendance last night at the kickoff, the Fox Theater. And that project will be one, I think, that you will see Aaron doing periodic updates. We are planning to have that consultant be our speaker for our next coffee talk. And that will be an opportunity for you all to meet those consultants and learn a little bit about downtown parking and probably some zoning that might go along with it. So you will be working with Aaron, I think, sooner versus later. So look for that early this next year as far as one of our coffee talk topics. The other item I wanted to bring to your attention is we did interview candidates for the open positions within the Planning Commission. The interview committee had met last week, and it was made up of outgoing Commissioner Holloway, Councilman Hopkins, Mr. Collins, myself, and Mr. Beamer. And we have brought forward a recommendation which will be public tomorrow in the council packet that goes out at 5. And then we will email that same information to you once it becomes public to council. and that will be voted on this next Tuesday evening. Also, that same evening as we'll have the public hearing, as Councilman Hopkins said. So we're hoping by minute action that we will have the announcement then of who the new planning commissioners are. But I didn't want to reveal it tonight because it is a council decision. Again, per their instruction next Tuesday. Lastly, I would respectfully ask for you all to consider, and we can have this as a topic on the January agenda, again, appointing 2 of you to represent the Old Yellowstone District Advisory Committee, which we like to do each year. And I know we've been thrilled the last few years with Commissioner Redder and Commissioner Hine, but we will be opening that up to the commission at our January agenda and getting those appointments made to that advisory committee. So just a future topic for all of you. And that's what I have.
Okay, I guess if I ask Dee, can I just request that be put on, or do we need to make some kind of a formal request? If you could stick that on our January agenda, that'd be appreciated, to appoint two of the commissioners to OID, whoever.
Have you noticed that Dee's office has moved also?
I did.
Yeah.
I noticed that the other day, so. Okay, I do not see anybody from the public to give them an opportunity to discuss or ask questions, so I'll pass that on. Again, I'd repeat what Liz said, that there was a meeting last night, and kind of an introductory meeting with Kimberly Horn, the consultant that the city has hired to oversee or do the parking study. So that will be moving ahead, and we would appreciate from the commission, or I'm assuming I would anyway, that periodic updates on that if as you see occasions arise or the need to keep us
Very
up.
detailed, hour-long presentations.
Okay.
Could you dress up too,
Yeah, we do have a planning and zoning dress code. Well, the only other item that I have, I guess I would reiterate what Councilman Hopkins said on the record. Thank you to Commissioner Holloway for his service, and this would have been his last meeting had he been able to attend. So we will not get a chance to thank him in person, but I do appreciate the work that he's done and the experience that he's given to the commission. So with that, I would state our next regular meeting of Planning and Zoning is scheduled for January 18th, Thursday at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. And are there any other items from the commission that they wanted to bring forward before we move to adjourn? Community Development Director Becker.
If it would please the commission, we would like as staff to ask you to recognize Commissioner Holloway at the beginning of the next commission meeting in January with his outgoing plaque of sorts. And that would be an opportunity for all of you to thank him and then also welcome in the new commissioner, if we could do that at the beginning of the meeting.
Certainly we'll do that. We'll make a point that gets done. Thank you. Any other items? Councilman Hopkins.
I'm sorry, this is probably out of line, guys, but I see that bridge sitting up there. And have you been to Fort Collins lately?
Not.
Coming in on Mulberry?
No.
There's a bridge very similar to that one that has been sitting just off to the south side of Mulberry, about halfway into town. And it's been sitting there for years. And if you guys, in your travels, you'd happen to go down there, could you see if you could find out who owns that bridge? Because I'd like to buy a bridge to put across the river.
How is it visible from the interstate?
No, it's not.
It's on Mulberry.
Pull off on Mulberry and about halfway into Fort Collins.
Okay.
This thing has been sitting there for years.
Sitting there for a long time.
And
Right on.
we've got several places that we could put bridges across the river, so to speak. And so if in your travels you go there and you happen to see this, just go check it out, because it's
right.
similar, very similar to what you have on the screen.
Huh.
And if it's scrap, maybe we'd be interested, I don't know. I, as a councilman, would be really interested, but I'm not sure I convinced the other 8 people of that, but it's just a cool thing to see, and I'm thinking, we could use something like that in Casper, so.
All right, we'll give that,
Go about your business.
thank you. We'll give that some serious thought. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Frank.
I would move to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Frank. Is there a second?
Move to second.
Second by Commissioner Frith. Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
Do we
All
need
members
4?
voting aye, the motion passes.